Welcome to Getting Down with Gooch. We start with a fist bump.
I'm okay with that. We usually start with a hug, but we did that already.
Yeah, we already got that out of the way. And when we're down here in the place that no one knows where we are, it's transformed.
Yes, when on the way here though, there is a place that I was like only in. We can say we're in South Jersey, right?
Yes, yeah. we can say we're
only
that,
in
but
South
no
Jersey.
More.
Can you get your tarot cards read by a girl named Jessica?
Oh yeah, where do you get that read?
Right up the street, about like 2
serious?
miles. Yeah, her name's Jessica. It's not like Lady Godiva. It's Jessica.
Would it say that on the sign while you were coming up? Get your tarot cards read by Jessica.
Jessica. That's why I was like, oh, yep.
Yeah.
Really in South Jersey.
She could go with like a name. Some kind of special name.
Yeah, like
would you
Miss
say?
Jessica.
Yeah,
would
Miss
even
Jessica.
Be, like, you know.
Or,
I mean, it worked for Roger Rabbit, but.
It's true. Well, I'm glad you're on the show. You're a bandmate of mine. You're a friend of mine. Mm-hmm. You're a producer, a musician. Well, you basically run and do event coordinating there at the Auburn Road venue. You do a lot
managerial
of different,
type.
Yeah, you do all kinds of different things.
I just say I'm to my coworkers. I'm a coworker with slightly more administrative privileges.
I like it.
Yeah.
Well, I just we've known each other quite some time, but I like to tell the story of how I first got to see you mm-hmm. or experience you, shall I say, which was when I was dating my girlfriend, Julie, as you know. Mm-hmm. It was before I really even got heavy into playing guitar, and I was really excited about it. So she's like, we got to go see Bo Raines. I love her. And I'm like, okay, cool, we'll go see her. I'll take you to see her. We went to Bean's Coffee Shop. And I'm still blown away to this day because I don't think I've seen you do it since, but you were doing the whole looping thing.
Live looping. Laptops and keyboards.
You were Ed Sheeran before Ed Sheeran. Like, yeah. It was
before Ableton Live was really a thing.
Yeah, I mean, so like what got you started on that path? I mean, I know you had, a solo career and everything like that you're still obviously pursuing, but you've mm-hmm. grown through different kind of phases of that. So maybe talk about like some of your early phase stuff and a little bit of that, like what brought you into that looping stuff.
I had been in bands throughout high school, and when I went to college, I was trying to do the solo artist thing.
So guitar was your first instrument then, or
piano was my first instrument when I started taking lessons formally at 4.
Okay.
And then studied, with somebody up until through college. And so I bought an acoustic guitar before I went to college, and left the electric at home.
Nice.
Figured it'd be easier. I went to school up in New York, so it was easier to hop on a train with an acoustic guitar. So I invested in one of those, and as I was working on a artist development deal, so to speak, it was kind of evident that maybe I couldn't afford a band yet.
Right.
So let's get out there and put the music out there as a solo artist. Okay. But using elements of the other musicality that I have, how could I use the tools that were starting to come about at that time, which would be looping.
Right.
So they had loop pedals, but the problem with the loop pedal was it only gave you 14 seconds.
Like 14 seconds of a pattern, and then
even if you got through your phrase and you didn't get done, it took you 16 seconds because of your how fast the song goes. Right. It would automatically click you out. Okay. This is before they came out with. Now they had came out afterwards with, your boss pedal.
Yeah, because I've experimented with that where you just maybe like play a little riff and then let it loop, and then you can kind of solo along with it. But compared to what you were doing, where you were taking piano and kind of slapping on your guitar, doing like a haunting thing in the background.
Yeah, that would come. That all came about afterwards because once we came up with how we were going to do it. So the way it worked is there was a looping element. I used a program called Digital Performer in my laptop, which is a DAW system, basically, a digital audio workstation. Pro Tools is one, Logic is another.
Gotcha.
But this was earlier on. The more user-friendly one was Digital Performer, at least as a songwriter. So that's what I learned on in school. But they had this element called Polar, which was basically a way for you to loop a pattern through, and it would loop your takes.
Okay.
So we figured out how to loop in that program set how many bars we needed it to loop. So that's how I would create my loop on stage.
Okay.
And then we went to Radio Shack and basically built the elements that was just an on-off switch and ran all of my guitar, my keyboards, my microphones through the aux of my sub mixer that I had on stage.
And you were doing your whole setup that night by yourself, by the way.
Yeah,
You didn't have
yeah.
any roadies or anything like that. You were doing.
No,
you
it's
were
just
doing
we
all
had
the-
like a
yeah.
we called it the brain, where my interface and my mixer was on top, and then my module for my keyboard sounds was all in this unit that had we put grips on it, and so I just put it on top, hook everything in, pray that
So
everything worked.
It kind of started out as like almost like a demoing thing you were doing, just kind of figuring it out, and then all of a sudden you're like, "Hey, I can take this live and start doing it live."
It was I saw some people start to do it, like Keller Williams.
Yeah, he
And
was one of the first
he had his
innovators.
own system that had a sub mixer, and I don't know what program he was using.
Right.
He did have a pedal system. I didn't really do too much research, but I remember spending like a good 3 months working on this, and then went and saw Imogen Heap, and she had it
Okay.
all in Ableton,
Yeah, she's
and
phenomenal.
and I was like, oh, there's a program that does all of this.
Womp, womp,
Wah,
womp. I
wah.
went through all this work, but you
Yeah.
probably learned a lot.
I learned a lot, and it also makes you better at playing because you need to land the loop consistently
Right.
every time, or else the loop is messed up and you're messing up in front of all of your audience. So you need to really have rehearsed the layers that you're creating. So that being said, I mean, you are a musician, so you came to see me and you saw what I was doing. You understood that.
Yeah, I mean,
But-
for me, it was just like I don't know if anybody understood how, because like I said, it was early on, and not a lot of people were doing that. Like you said, Keller Williams, but he wasn't like now you see all kinds of software, all kinds of people doing it, and I just think you were to me, I think you probably were the first person I ever saw do it, and I don't know if you remember, I came up to you afterwards like,
Oh, I remember.
oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna play some slide guitar, and I'm gonna have a band, and where do you recommend any places to record and this and that? And it's like,
Yeah,
who
yeah,
would have thought our paths cross again and again and again to where we are now?
Yeah, and the next time I saw you was, and that was when I actually got to see you play, was you were playing the Woodstown Fall Festival with 61 North, and your counterpart forgot his guitar at home.
Oh,
For the
that's
gig.
right. That's right.
And I remember lending my Pride and Joy acoustic guitar to him so that you guys could do your set.
Well, I appreciate
But
that.
but it was also fine by me because I was like, well, I was going to hear you guys play anyway, so so that
Well,
was my first experience.
I was
with
also
seeing you
wondering,
play.
like, some of your early influences compared to, because I know, like, when we started hanging out, I think we both, I mean, even if we had come from different places, we were both we met at the same time. We were both kind of discovering some real roots blues, gospel, soul music, and really getting into some of that older material that I think influences our sound now. And I think we had to go through those phases of growing. Even though I was in 61 North doing that thing, you were kind of pursuing your solo thing. So, like, who are some of your early influences compared to, like, some of your influences now?
So at that time period was probably a little bit different because I was fiending for any kind of music.
Right.
I also made it a point to study more jazz and blues because I didn't have that formal training growing up. It was classical.
Right.
Or it was whatever, mom and dad had on the radio, or my brother had Blasting Through the Wall, which was,
Which was probably pretty good music, because
Yeah,
they have good
yeah.
taste.
Yeah, my mom was more into like your Johnny Cash, your country music. She and her brother used to trade albums for Christmas presents, and they used to trade concert experiences. That was their Christmas
good
gifts.
old days.
Yeah, and then my dad was a musician who looked and sounded a lot like Elvis Presley back in the day.
So I've heard.
He hung out in Philly with Frankie Avalon's crew, and at least took his sister to a dance or something. And he used to hitchhike up to the Ed Sullivan Theater to take vocal lessons with one of the guys that was working with, unless you're of that era, you don't know, but Steve Lawrence, Vic Damone, and Edie Gourmet were all studying with this guy on the side street of the Ed Sullivan Theater. My dad would hitchhike as far as he could and then take a bus up there.
So that tenacity and musicianship runs in the family a little bit.
Yeah. So so whatever he was playing was like usually that 1950s music. So it would, and things like which was earlier, the Platters, or even someone like the Ink Spots, who influenced the Platters.
Right.
And a lot of Elvis Presley. Trying to think, some Patsy Cline, lots of Patsy Cline.
John probably knows all about that. He's old.
And then my brother closest in age to me, he was the one that was like, oh, this is hip hop. Because he was 3.5 years older than me. And then he was like, oh, this is grunge.
Yeah, like we were just talking, you're a huge hip-hop head, but you also know, Nirvana and Oasis and Alice in Chains. So I feel like we're very similar, because I went through those phases too, where like I was listening to Nas and Biggie and Q-Tip and some of the older stuff, Tribe Called Quest.
Yeah, or if you even go like the Philly sounds, like, you had Boyz II Men and you had Belle Biv DeVoe and you had Criss Cross and all of those guys. Will Smith and DJ Jazzy Jeff, or Fresh Prince and DJ Jazzy Jeff. So all of those sounds coming out of Philly.
Yeah, for sure.
So that was a bigger influence. The groups that I say are very informative to my earlier music, had it not been for my aunt having cable television and my cousins watching MTV, and the Mysterious Ways music video by U2 coming on, I wouldn't have pursued music in a songwriter perspective and going, oh, wait, there's like rock stars and there's people who go do this on stage and it's almost theatrical, and I would torture my poor family on vacations by telling them there's going to be a show. And like I would just kind of wing it, but would make up tickets and have refreshments, which are like crackers and cheese.
Nice.
And they would sit on the edge of the bed and applaud, and then off they would go. And I apologize for that. But also the other thing was my dad decided that he was going to take 2 of his guitars, give one to my brother and give one to me.
Nice.
And they kind of sat around for a little bit because it was bigger than I was. So I was about 11, and the November Rain music video came on. And I saw Slash walk out and start his solo.
Rip that solo.
And I was like, I wonder if I could do that. And so I went over and started using my ear to kind of figure out what he was doing. And then at that point, I started trying to figure out. So I started teaching myself guitar. But then when you're a teenager, I don't know, I was listening to Tori Amos way too much. Alanis Morissette way too much.
Getting in your feels.
Fiona Apple way too much.
Getting angsty a little bit.
It wasn't so much. Well, the lyrics were cool, and as far as Alanis Morissette, and the vibe was cool. For me, it was cool. Tori Amos was the piano.
Well, yeah, and then also like Alana, she was a rock chick. Like she came out, and I believe like I always say, her original drummer on the album is that guy from Foo Fighters,
Taylor Hawkins.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I think that album has so much just badass.
And Flea actually plays bass on if you get to the secret track that comes into another track, it is a variation on You Ought to Know, and it's Flea playing bass. Yeah.
I'll have to go back and check that out.
Like Jagged Little Pill was one of those ones where, the needle could drop and I could, hear the first chord, and then it goes to the next song and I know what key it's in because I listened to it way too much.
So are you the type of person, I mean, like me, I've been lucky. I've always been able to kind of just listen to a song and pick up the chords, and from playing along with you and stuff, I know you can do that, but is that something you did growing up? Because I know I did that a lot. Would just sit around and just like I'd hear a song, Dave Matthews or something, and it would consume me. Like I had to learn it. I had to know all these songs that were coming across the radio and stuff like that. So you kind of like that?
There is a video from me when I'm 3 years old, and I crawl up to the piano, and I've got the rhythm to like Rudolph or something, or one of those like Christmassy songs. But then I started to figure out stuff by ear, and my mom was really like, all right, we need to get her lessons. And my piano teacher would play this. I go, can you play it for me? And she'd play it for me. And then I go, okay. And I went a long time without actually reading music because the jokes on her.
That's what I look for in musicians that I like to play with, is people who feel it, because there's a lot of people who have went to school and learned how to read music or can play, but they can't feel it. They can't And when you're in a band, like, you have to do that thing where you're constantly listening.
Mhm.
And for us, we're singing, listening, playing all at the same time. And that's what makes it kind of like almost like a religious, medicinal, special experience. But it's also very difficult. It's something you kind of have to learn along the way.
Yeah, I mean, your ear gets stronger to connect with what your brain's hearing and your fingers connecting. But I also think, it's a gift that some people have, not everybody has.
It's true. It's true.
I have just enough of it that it doesn't, like, I don't have the perfect pitch burden, but I have the relatively close.
Yeah,
so
I'm sure with some people who have that, like the perfect pitch and things like that, if something, because I've played with some musicians where if some little thing's out of place,
it's probably drives them nuts.
It irks them. Where to me, I'm like, I like that thing just a little left to center.
Yeah.
As Joe the Butcher says, deep scratches in fine leather. That's a very Joe way of putting it.
I mean, it's even a little bit of what modern I say modern producers, like the young kids today, the 20-somethings,
the young hip producers.
They like to, okay, you played that two on top of the beat, so they slide it back, or even if you do something and it's but it's the opposite with pitch, because they want to put Melodyne on everything and like make it perfect. But if you listen to old recordings from like soul music in the 60s and you hear harmonies, or if you solo the vocals on Bohemian Rhapsody, and sometimes the higher notes are just a little bit off.
Yeah,
but
we were just talking about that. I think Andy Meyer and I were talking about how some of the old records and stuff, like I'll go along to play with something, it's like, what is this, like half a little bit down tuned or something, and really sometimes I think it was because the tape was sped up or slowed down a little bit, and but that kind of just gives it a special sound sometimes. So I kind of miss those days. I don't like the music to be too perfect, so I'm of that school. I'm sure you are too. You like to kind of leave some room for that.
Learned a little bit to let some of it be more forgiving, because don't lose the feel.
Yeah. Because
you're trying to be on time, or you're trying to be on pitch. But if the sentiment is there and you feel it, then stop questioning it.
I also wanted to pick your brain a little bit about teaching, because how long did you teach for?
And which
school was it?
So I started teaching private lessons at 14 years old.
Oh, okay.
And I still kind of do. I have like a couple of students, but at one point I was teaching like 30. And then I was also a music director in a private school for roughly 6 years.
Yeah, what was the school?
So I was at Sacred Heart High School.
Sacred Heart, okay.
And then I did a year at a place called the Ellison School, which was 2 through 14-year-olds.
Sacred Heart was where we did where my band did the benefit, right?
Yes.
Where we introduced you to your husband.
My husband, yes.
Yes.
Yes, he was your sub for Mr. Bob Comfort.
Yeah, it was meant to be that day. He would just happen to be subbing bass and just happen to meet you. And
the goofy guy with the head that wouldn't stop shaking.
Yeah, well, like I like to say,
but had a good groove. So
he did have a good groove, and I always tell the story, but it cracked me up because he was just in love with you from the moment you struck. Well, even before that, but as soon as you struck a note on Red House, I think we played like a slow blues.
Yeah, we played Red House.
You did a slow. I think we all were a little bit like, yo. That was awesome, but he was just
a little practice amp and an out-of-tune guitar that belonged to one of the kids.
Yeah,
yes,
that's what. There you go, though. It's all in the feel, man. It's all in the bends of the string. That string's a little out of tune. We'll bend it up.
Well, I realized that my guitar needed a setup recently because I let somebody else play it, and I was like, oh, that sounds horrible. And I realized I'm just adjusting to my guitar needs some attention.
I had a friend. I won't mention his name, but he was pretty intoxicated after a gig one time, and he came up to me. He's like, yo, man, you know what, if you hit a wrong note, just hit it again
and again
and then just hit it again, and people be like,
now it's apart.
He's coloring outside of the lines. And I was just like, you're drunk. No,
but that is actually funny.
But it is, sometimes you do that, hit it again, and then slide. Well, I'm lucky because I play slide. I can slide it up. But so you taught music technology too, right?
Yeah. That was one of the classes.
What was that like, teaching kids and that experience as opposed to being a performer or recording artist? Like,
well, so I mean, there was some music appreciation class. There was also instrumental music class. But with the music technology, it was basically an elective for kids who either were musicians so they could learn the basics of recording themselves, or who weren't really musicians but learning how to use technology to create an idea. I'm finding that more and more kids are actually going, "Oh, I make beats. I'm a producer." And when you ask them, are they a musician, and that's their instrument, and I think that's great because so you can't pick up a guitar or a piano, or you can't sing, but you can hear music a certain way, and you can make it work, and you're still being able to be creative and make people dance, make people happy. That's a great thing.
I agree.
Or you're that person that other artists come to, that you understand sound, and you give that artist that next level of what they need for their song. I think that's a cool thing.
I like watching Butch. He does the MPC pad, and now he's the MPC ambassador pretty much for what company is he?
Native Instruments.
Native Instruments, which is like the company for those things. So it's like, you never know. And he was a phenomenal drummer and still is in his own right and everything. But I'm sure he didn't foresee his path going that way. But once he really started getting an Instagram following for it, and
it was a niche that he found.
And I love it. I think that
super talented, super hardworking. And he was very focused. Where I think this is also something for those who are really in it. He would not go to a party like all the other 19, 20-year-old kids. He would be like, no, I have to go work. I got to work on making more beats.
Make more beats.
He's like, that's cool. They can go get drunk and do whatever they're going to do. I have to work right now. I have to stay focused. And he's always kind of been that way. And I think that's, a little bit of our group of people. I feel is, can't shut the music thing off.
Yeah.
Even if you try.
I think we're fortunate too, because even though, you're in Philly, so, you work down in South Jersey still, and you have roots down here, but you're living in Philly. There's a ton of great musicians and music coming out of Philly.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of good people in South Jersey, Delaware. There's a lot of different scenes, and we've been lucky enough to kind of
find each other,
find each other, but tap into all three of those scenes so that we're constantly drawing from. We have a Rolodex of different musicians we can call, and people that we've learned from and grown with, and things like that. And so I'm excited because we're gonna eventually work on this project that we've been talking about for a little while now, which is going to be exciting. But so what are some of the other projects you've been working on? Because I see you're working on all kinds of different little things, and I kind of haven't really gotten the chance
I've done a lot more work for hire kind of things. Basically, I need you to play the bass.
Okay.
I need you to play keys, organ or whatever. We need this for a show. Okay. Need you to play guitar for me. So I've been doing a lot of that. Joe's called me. Joe the Butcher's called me.
I know you session with Joe all the time. He brings you in. You're like the utility player on the baseball team. We need you in left field.
Yes.
We need you shortstop.
I need some keys. I need some guitar. Okay, Joe. And then I produced an EP for the band Tadmore.
Right. And they're gonna do a World Cafe show with us again this winter.
And apparently I'm on that gig with them.
You'll have to be on the gig with all of us.
That's awesome.
Just jam out.
Yeah, that's January 26th.
January 26th. Yeah.
And then so their lead singer moved down to Nashville. Scott Jones. So he's
Scott Levi. I was making
Scott
fun of him
Levi Jones.
I said, "What do you want me to put on the flyer? Tadmore or Scott Levi Jones? That Southern bullshit or something?
Yeah,
some country bullshit." I said, "What kind of country name is that?" I'm Scott Levi Jones.
I was born in Alloway.
Yeah,
that's in New Jersey, but I still use a Southern accent.
I use a Southern accent.
Dang,
I moved to Nashville.
He says.
I love that guy. He's a great guy. He texted me the other day. I didn't get a chance to get up with him. We were supposed to get together and play, but
he'll be back.
I was like, "Hey, man, come do the show." I was trying to find an opening act, and I was like, I'm just going to ask them again. Yeah. It was a great time. They warmed the crowd up great, and I love giving those guys love. So
well, I mean, he's also again one of those younger people that's doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah,
he's
exactly.
like, where do I need to be to make this kind of music? Nashville. Moves to Nashville. If you watch all of that he's doing, he's working on becoming a better songwriter, and he's working on shows. And goes out and jams, and he has a day job or something to keep the lights on. But
Now, do you do any work with Alexis Cunningham anymore? You guys had like a
yeah,
little
so
band.
she and I were just talking. So we had I was basically in her group. She wrote the songs.
It was like a girl
called
group.
the Sugar Pops.
It's a good girl, all girl group, right?
Yeah,
I
so
love that. You guys sounded great.
It was cool. It was like 90s pop rock music-ish, more alternative rock music. And she's a great singer, great lyrics, and she's working on some solo stuff.
Okay.
So she and I recently reconnected, and we're trying to get some stuff going. She worked with Eric Bazillion on a lot of that.
From the Hooters.
And he's in Sweden a lot. So,
Right.
she's trying to, she's still playing music all the time, but she's trying to figure out what to do with her original music, which is, it's all great stuff. So she and I recently reconnected, and
That's awesome. She's a good person too. She's just a really sweet person.
She's got a cool dog too.
Yeah. What's her dog's name?
Elvis.
Elvis?
Yes.
That makes sense. What kind of dog is it?
A yellow lab. You like labs.
I like labs, just like my Wyatt.
Yes.
Yes, he's a big friendly dog.
Yes.
And
it's brown.
Yeah, I love animals. Anyway,
we could talk about that later.
About animals all day. I love animals more than humans at this point. I'm more comfortable surrounding myself with them at night than I am interested in being around a human being. But maybe that's just me.
Yes. Mitch and I, my husband Mitch, we
didn't
like even mention his
dog.
name. Yeah, he's kind of like Rolf.
I gotta bust his stones a little
bit.
From
the Muppets.
Rolf.
Think about it, and then you'll be like,
truth. A little bit.
Truth.
I mean,
but the percentage of time that we talk to people about our cat, Sir Duke, it's like we realize it's probably unhealthy.
Well,
but
you inspired me to start my cats into
yeah,
Instagram.
But it's,
so now both our cats have Instagram, and they're friends with each other. It's
our release to share this beautiful creature in our lives without blowing up our Facebook page every 5 seconds or our Instagram. That's for us as professionals with images of our wonderful felines.
Yeah,
so.
And mostly we just see them and they're sleeping and we're like, oh my God, click.
Yes.
But it's funny. It's almost bizarre to me how many people started following the cat.
The cat.
And like crazy cat people.
Oh yeah. They're like, oh,
I don't want to
so
call them
cute.
Crazy, but
no, but I'm one of them. I'm one of them.
No, there's some way creepier people that have commented. And I look at their Instagram and they're like dressing their cat up in different outfits and different things. And
no, I like to capture the creature in their natural habitat, which is like, my house. But yes. So
anyway, back
to projects.
Yeah, back to projects.
I was working on some of my solo stuff too. So eventually 2019 will be my stuff coming out. I work with Mitch Beer and Josh Lerner, and I've worked with Butch on a track, but to release kind of 2 EPs. One's more in the box, and then the other one is real instrument based. Okay. And then the other project I'm working on is the blues project with you.
So are those going to be like kind of like 2 little EP type things?
Maybe 2 EPs that are almost
5 songs on each one, or
4 or 5 songs in each one. Whatever the organic roots music one is called.
That makes sense.
Whatever I decide to name that, the other one is going to be the same name but in binary code.
Nice.
It'll be the electronic side.
I know how you feel, because like you're one of the only people I think that we really identify with the fact that we know how to, and we're good at, and we like. So it's not really it's not like we're trying to do something that we aren't, but we like going to a producer that makes beats, having them make some kind of hip hop type beat, then maybe adding some guitar or some live instrumentation, and then doing a song to it. But we also love the roots stuff where we're playing with a full band or just acoustic or something like that. And sometimes those 2 worlds don't sonically mix well. So to release them on the same record sometimes is like a little weird. So I think the way to do it is something like that. And people today, they seem like they're just putting out singles too. So
yeah, I mean, there's no labels, and there's actually a freedom in that. It's also kind of putting things out and seeing what comes to the surface and what people like.
Right.
Because it's been a minute since I've put something out. So, but it's also, I like both things, and in terms of branding and things of that, and what people want to put you in a genre, or put you in a certain category that they know what they're going to get.
Right.
But I'm more or less like, well, I do all these things, and I
Yeah.
like all these things,
Yeah,
and
and that's okay. I think, they tried to tell Ray Charles he shouldn't do a country album,
yeah, and then
and we would have never
yeah,
had Georgia.
yeah, yeah,
So I mean, he was like a big inspiration to me for that. And then now there's tons of people like Ed Sheeran. He'll come out with a song one week that has like a hip hop beat, and the next he's got like something that sounds like you could dance at a wedding to.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think if you're a musician, there's lots of influences that you can't ignore.
Right.
I mean, you did a whole hip hop thing with the Grady Lake
Grady
Shore.
Lakeshore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Look it up on SoundCloud. It's us.
I still every once in a while I have to pull like something from that song to because it's so true and
Which one?
applicable.
Like I Give a Fuck?
Yeah, that one.
That's my
Yeah.
song.
Laka, yeah.
That's our jam.
Yeah,
It is.
that's
It
good.
is nice to just throw it on and bump it every once in a
Yeah.
while and just relieve some stress.
Yeah.
But yeah, like so, when you're doing these projects and stuff, like, do you feel more as you're getting older, like you want to be more in the producer role, or do you want to keep doing what you're doing, kind of keep being the musician, the working musician, things like that? Because the Tadmore record came out really great. I like the way.
I like producing. I like hearing someone else's bringing a song to the table and going, well, what do you do that if you did it this way? I really think I'm more or less like a creative contributor.
Yeah. I feel the same way.
I'm not like with Tadmore, they hadn't really made an album before. Well, and I had, and they had never been in a studio before.
Yeah. So for you had all this knowledge you could impart on them.
And they had ideas of how they wanted things to sound. And I was like, well, what if we did this? What if we tried this? And it was a very short period of time that we worked on it because Scott was like, I got to go to Nashville. I'm like, when are you going? Tomorrow. And it was our first day in the studio.
Oh, my gosh.
But he just was like, I need to go now. If I don't go now, I'm not going to go. I'm like, so go and come back. So that's how we finished up.
So
the
that album's
album.
out. That album's out now on iTunes.
On iTunes, Amazon Music, streaming on Spotify.
And
so,
a lot of your music is available on iTunes as well, or where can
no,
people
so
hear you?
all of the stuff that I had made once upon a time was pulled by the label that I was working with, which is okay.
Yeah,
because that now I have a clean slate.
Yeah.
And so I will be releasing stuff. Before I used to be like, oh, I did everything, you know, and that's the 20-year-old talking. But now I really get excited about the collaboration with other people and going, this is a project I get to work on with this person.
Yep.
So, you and I having a certain understanding of blues music, of American roots music, in addition to having grown up in a similar area of the world, having similar experiences in life as a result of that, that kind of, we connect on that level. So that makes me get excited about doing this blues project.
Me too. I'm super stoked. So where can people find you? The BoRains.com,
BoRains.com, BoRains.com.
Okay, BoRains.com, and they can find you on Facebook and
Instagram,
Instagram.
BoRains Music. At BoRains Music is my Insta.
And you're going to be dropping new music in 2019.
2019, we've been in pre-production, but nowadays pre-production is most of what you're going to have on the actual.
Yeah, I know how that is. Same with me. Like sometimes I'll be like, this is going to be pre-production. I'm like, well, I already have that down. I'm just going to use it. It sounds good.
Yep.
So well, cool. Well, I appreciate you being on Getting Down with Gooch. We're going to wrap it up.
Thank you for having me.
Yep. So check out Miss BoRains.